Teacher Emily here with Vipkid. Today I am going to do a video on Mock 2, which is our home pollution. And this is how I would go about teaching this lesson. So jumping right into the introduction slide, this is what I would do. Hello, my name is Teacher Emily. What is your name? My name is Josh. Hello, Josh. How are you? I am fine. And you? I'm doing great. So, if you've watched some of my previous videos, I only asked those two questions because the clock is ticking. So, I want to try to get as much information done as possible. So, then after I do that, then I would introduce the lesson. Today, we will learn about Earth, our home, and pollution. And I would underline that. Moving on to the reward system. There's so many videos on rewards. I would just pick one and just stick to it. Today, I'm just going to use stars. I would do something probably a little bit more creative than just stars if I was doing this interview. Okay, so for the warm-up, I am Earth. What I would do is I would break the poem down into two parts and I would just have the student repeat after me. So this is how I would teach it. I am Earth. You're in my hands. I am Earth. We're in my care. Your turn. And then have the interviewer read. And then good job. And then I would put a bracket over the second portion, and I would also bracket the first portion to know what you're actually saying. So then I would go through the same thing. I would do the 4 lines with TPR and everything, and then just have the student repeat, and then move on. Okay, so the next slide is the where do we live. So first I would introduce the word environment. So environment. And if they have trouble with it, you can break it down. You can clap, you can write lines in between the syllables, you can type it out, which was a tip that someone gave me during my Mock 1. So that's what you can do if they have trouble with that. So then after I introduced the word environment, I would ask, what is an environment? And then I would either ask the student to read or prompt the student to read by just doing a little bracket, a little like C over what I wanted them to read. And then I would just hold up my hand to my ear as always and just have them read. And then I would go, that's right, it's the place where someone lives. And then I would ask him to read the second lines, where we live, just call our environment. Each environment is special. And then I would praise them. And then I would number the pictures. And then I would ask, what does your environment look like? And I would ask 1, 2, or 3. And then they'll say number 3. And that's right. What do you see in your environment? I see buildings, or whatever they said. Like, that's so good. What environment would he live in? And then they would say number 1. And then I would ask, what do you see in his environment? And they'll say trees. And then I would probably give them a reward. Good job, you get a star or a medal or whatever the reward is. Okay, so the next slide is talking about trash. So I would first introduce the word trash. After that, I would have them read the first 2 sentences by just bracketing or asking them to read. After that, I would ask them what they see in the picture. And they might list the things, chips, a Coke can, a banana, etc., etc. And then I would see if they knew what a trash bin was. And then you can say, this is a trash bin. We put our trash in the trash bin. And if you have a prop, if you have like a little trash can, that would be great. And then I would ask, where do we put our trash? And they would either read or they would just say, in the trash bin. Okay, so moving on to harm, I would introduce the word harm. As always, I always introduce red words first, especially if they have not seen them before. So then, harm. What is harm? And then harm is to hurt something or someone. That's right, good reading. And then I would prompt them to read the throwing trash into our environment. Um, and then after that, I would ask them what they see in the picture. They could talk about the oil, or not the oil, but the otter with the trash around his neck, and see if they can kind of describe the picture instead of having them just read that other sentence. Okay, so for the next slide, I would just ask, what can harm Earth? And then prompt them to read throwing trash into our environment can harm Earth. Then I would ask them if anything else can harm Earth and see if they answer. If not, you can come up with a couple other examples. The next slide is the reading story slides. And what I suggest would be let the student read as much as possible. You can kind of gauge their reading from the previous slides that you've just taught, or you can also read a few of the sentences and then have them read the next sentences in the story. So I would not introduce the red words unless they are new, which they are new on the next slide. So what I would do for this first slide, I would be like, Josh, story time. I read, then you read. So then I would go through the first couple of sentences, and then I would be like, your turn, and then they would read. And then I would ask them what they see in the picture, because the pictures will come up again when they have to put the story in order. So I always try to ask about the pictures so then that can help them in the future. So they'll say, oh, I see trash or whatever, and try to make them talk in complete sentences. And then I would ask, how do you feel when you see trash on the ground? And then they'll answer. And then you can give them another reward for their good reading or good answering the question, or yeah. So then the next slide is I would introduce the word need and clean. And then I would probably have the student read the entire thing if the time permits, if they are a good reader. And then if they mess up on some of the words, what I do is I underline the word if they missed it, and I don't interrupt them. I just let them push through the words. And then after that, before I ask any other questions, I will go back and teach them the right word pronunciation. So after they read the story, then I would ask, saw in the picture. And if they have trouble with it because it's a simple picture, you can help them by saying, they're telling everyone that we need to work together or something to that effect. And then you can ask if they have ever helped clean up their neighborhood or their school or their home, something like that. Okay, so then moving on to the next slide. There are no red words, so I just have the student read and then ask about the picture. What are they doing in the picture? They are helping pick up the trash in their neighborhood. And then you can ask them the bottom question, what can people do to help keep the environment clean? And they'll probably say pick up trash. You can try to expand on that, but if not, obviously the time is running out, so just try to get through information. Okay, the last slide for the story. Once again, just have them read, ask about the picture, then you can ask a couple of the bottom questions. Okay, so put the story in order. So I would ask, Josh, which picture happened first? Can you circle? Then they'll circle the trash picture, and then I would just ask him, what happened in that picture? And then they'll just kind of retell the story. And then I would just ask 2, 3, and 4, and then just kind of have them retell the story after they tell you what happened. I'll probably give them another reward. Speaking of rewards, try to have your rewards visible at all times after you've given them. I go into more detail over my mock tips video, so if you want to check out that, that has some really good tips. Okay, so for the next slide is the answering the questions. What I would do is I would read the first one and then just have them answer. And then I would have the student read and answer 2 and 3. Another tip is the interviewer might ask you what a word means. So, for instance, they will read number 3. What does Jenny and her family do to help? Do you think it's enough? Why or why not? And then they could ask, teacher, what does enough mean? And then you have to come up with the definition of enough. So just be prepared for those kinds of questions. Okay, the grammar slide. So I would first introduce that today we will learn about the future tense. Can you read this top? And then I would have the student read the first about the going to. And I said, that's right. We use going to in the future tense. Can you read this sentence? And then I am going to pick up the trash. Very good. Can you think of other sentences that uses going to? And then see if they can come up with a sentence. You can give them a sentence like, I am going to throw the ball. Something like that. Okay, so for the next slide is the grammar slide. And how I would talk about it is I would give a diagram already pre-written. You can do it on paper, you can do it on whiteboard, whatever easier for you. And this is how I would do it. When we talk about the future tense, we use am, is, or are plus going to plus the verb. Can you read the first sentence? And then I am going to clean up the environment, and then I would just have the student read, he is going to play outside, and then we are going to work hard. Okay, and then moving on, I'd probably give another reward after that slide. Okay, so for when is it, I would review what past, present, and future means, and you can make little diagrams like, remember, the past happened yesterday, and the present is today, and the future is tomorrow, something like that. And then I would probably alternate the teacher would read 1 and 3, and then I can have the student do 2 and 4, and then just have them either, you can have them draw a line, you can just have them say it, and yeah, just make them talk in complete sentences is the main part of this, and have them read as much as possible. Okay, for the fill in the blanks, I would review is and are. So this is how I would go about teaching it. When there is an is in this sentence, that means one subject. When we use are in a sentence, that means 2 subjects. Can you fill in number 1? And then I would just kind of prompt them to read pollution and trash, and I would hold up props, is or are, and then they'll probably get it right. If they don't, you can ask them to number the subjects in the sentence. Then I would do the same thing for number 2. So for the first phonics slide, I would first just have the student read the top portion, and then I would ask them what sound does long E make, to make sure they know. Then I would just have them read the Y words and just remember here the Y makes the long E sound. And then I would have them read the E words after that. I then would ask them if they can think of any other words that has Y sounding like an E. And if they don't know one, then you can give them one. Okay, then moving on to the next slide. First, I would have them list all the vowels. You can have a little prop or not. You can just see if they know them. And then I would say, sometimes Y is a vowel. Can you read? And then I have them make them read this side. And then after that, I would circle the vowel words and just explain, can you read these words? Remember, Y is a vowel. And then they'll read those words. And then I would ask, what sound does Y make when it's a consonant? Then after that, I would ask them if they can think of any other words when Y is a consonant. And if they can't think of one, you can give them one. Then for the next slide, I would make it super simple and just draw lines from the Y to each of the words and just have them read. And then a good expansion question would be if they can use one of those words in a sentence. So you can do that for one or two of the words, just to make them talk in complete sentences. That is emphasized so much. Matching, super simple. I would just have the student read, or I would read the first one. I would ask if it was harm, environment, and trash, and then I would have the student read two and three, sorry. So then for the pictures, I would just circle the first picture and ask, what do you see? Then I would circle the second picture and ask, what do you see? Then I would ask, how are they different? Which park would you rather visit? Super simple. Okay, so for the second to last slide, I would ask, what can harm your environment? And see what they can come up with. And then I would have the student read think about the trash you throw away, what can it harm? And see if they come up with anything. You can also have a couple examples if they can't think of anything. Okay, and then for the goodbye slide, I would just count all the rewards. I would give out another reward before the end of the slide. And then tell them they did a good job, count the rewards, and just have a formal goodbye. See you next time, goodbye. So yeah, that is what I would do if I was going to do a mock 2. If you have any questions, my email is down below, my referral link is down below. You can leave a comment and I will try to get back to you as fast as I can. I know this is a stressful process, it's a fast process, so I completely understand. Other than that, thank you for watching.